About 3 months back, I wrote a Medium post about how I experimented with my career as an engineer because I was slightly confused about which domain I should pick. And that was very well received by so many people, so many strangers. And this led to so many brilliant conversations with these guys. This video is an extension to one, those conversations, and second, to the post itself, where I mostly will talk about my take on career experiments and how the world has just got everything upside down when it comes to a career. First up, I'm a robotics engineer who absolutely loves what he does. But that was not the case when I started out just after my bachelor's degree in engineering. I was actually very confused about what I wanted to do, and everyone asked me to be stable, find a job, and then in parallel maybe figure it out or suck it up. But I didn't do either. I thought that the most practical way to build a long term career is to love what you do, or at least really, really like what you do. That would mean that I would have to first figure this out. So my quest began. I started experimenting with quite a few career trajectories, and in time, I figured out what I wanted to do, which is robotics now. And if you're here, I'm guessing you want to listen to my take on experimenting in career to figure out what you want to do in the long term. I would love for you to read my Medium article first. I talk about my entire process spanning about 3.5 years in detail. I've spent quite a bit of time describing what I went through in that Medium post. And I think that might be a really interesting read for you. And once you're done with that, this video will make a lot more sense than it will without you reading that Medium post. So, as my Medium post says, I experimented for about 3 years with technical and non-technical domains. And in the end, I fell in love with the idea of robotics. So that's what I do for a living right now. But there are certain problems with this entire process I went through. And that has got so much to do with how we perceive the idea of a career now. I'll tell you how I think about the general idea of career. There's no one idea anymore. Things change, and things, especially in tech, have changed so fast. But the majority of our population is still living with the old ideas of a career, which focuses on not exploring and experimenting, but following the rules as much as you can. But there are no freaking rules anymore. And that is what we don't understand. In the last 5 years, we've seen everything changing so much. The internet has morphed into something entirely different, and this has unlocked so many opportunities. And the biggest change we've seen in the past 5 years is that the way you work has changed, of course, but the number of career options you have is not the same as before. What does that imply? That means that we have much more options than before. That's a great thing. But the tricky thing is that we need to figure out what we want to do. That requires exploration, that requires looking at different domains to understand what you like, and that's what I did. But the general public is still against the idea of exploring and figuring all this stuff out. They still think that starting a career in a field just so that you can get money and find stability is the noble thing to do for yourself and your family. But that's absolutely wrong. In my opinion, career is a long-term game. You have to spend the next 30, 40, 50 years in your career. To me, it means that I'm going to be spending most of my time working in my life for the next 50 years. Does that not give me the right to stay happy and work on things I like for the next 50 years? If that is the case, it means that I desperately need to optimize for these hours, which covers almost my entire life. So my idea is that you gotta first explore, figure out what you want to do, and then go all in. And that is exactly my position right now. I'm going all in the fields I really like. And most of the times it feels like play to me. And when I say play, I do not mean I don't have challenges. To be honest, I've chosen robotics as my main career, which means that I have so many challenges on a day-to-day basis. Most of the times I'm dealing with challenges I have no solutions to. And I have to find ways to figure out these solutions as an engineer. It's extremely hard. This is an extremely hard process, but more than the process being hard, it is so rewarding. I absolutely love most of the time I'm working, and when I'm not working, there have been days where I'm thinking about work, and it's just a beautiful feeling. The other day I was talking to my colleague about this, and his words were, "Man, I fucking love my job." And we just had a very challenging week at work, but the both of us were still absolutely in love with what we're doing. Isn't that how a career should be? A career for me should not be a place where I am just looking for the next thing which will give me happiness. I just wanted to be happy with my work now, and I optimized for that for the first 3.5 years, and now I absolutely love it. And as I said before, there are still very big challenges for me, but I like solving for those challenges. That is what I want to do for a living. There are so many people I meet, including friends, who are so smart. They're probably smarter than me, but surprisingly, most of them are in a position where they don't know what to do about their career and lives. In fact, some of them started off their careers with the idea that they will figure things out, but because the general public said you are not allowed to explore and you have to follow a straight line, they just did not explore. And at this point of time, they are not happy with what they do. And exploration is not the easiest thing to do, of course. When I was doing it, I had to face flack from almost everyone. Apart from my immediate family, everyone else was against me exploring and experimenting to figure things out for myself. According to them, I should have just continued what I was doing back then, even though I didn't really like that much. That's that's stupid. That is not optimizing for the long term. People say this is optimizing for the long term, but this is anything but optimization. If you don't explore enough, there are chances that you will end up at the right place or you will start liking what you do. I'm all in for that. But if that doesn't happen, which is something I see so often, there's just one person to blame, that's yourself. I am absolutely against the idea of following a straight line, even if that line is not for you. Of course, if you're not enjoying something for the short term, that does not mean it is not for you. But if you clearly see that the domain you're working in is not for you for the long term, there is something to be done there. And I'm not saying people should just bluntly leave their jobs. I've explored in parallel to my job all the time, and now I am at a place where I absolutely love my job. I love the people I work with, and I see myself working for a long, long time. But maybe I got lucky that I explored for about 3 years and it just worked out gradually. Maybe some people will take a longer time, but not taking time to experiment and explore is outright stupid. If you like what you're doing and you want to spend your time in that field, that is the best situation to be in. But if that's not the case, if you're one of the people who like what they do, please stop this video here, and what I'm gonna say after this is definitely not for you. I mean, you can be here if you're curious, but this is not for you. If you don't, based on my personal experience, which can be wrong for someone else, there are certain reasons we gotta explore and experiment. Reason one: long term career. A long term career cannot be built on not liking your field. You have to like what you're doing, or it just can't work out in the long term. One of my mentors in the past said something which always stuck with me. He said, you either love what you do or you do what you love. There is no other way. And I absolutely agree with that now. Second, happiness. That just explains itself, right? Like, happiness is paramount, and if you're not happy for a long, long, long time, there is something to be done about that. And there are certain reasons people end up not experimenting and following their curiosities. The biggest reason is public perception. I think that's a very stupid reason to not explore your curiosities. People have no clue what's happening in the world, to be very honest. I've had to face flack from people who I absolutely admired when it comes to their career. But the truth is, the idea of careers has moved very fast, and the people I admire also had no idea about how a career will look like some years down the line. And I found absolutely no reason to believe in what they're saying. Their idea of a career was following a straight line because that's what they did 10 years back. But that was 10 years back. Now things have changed. Second, stable income. Now I absolutely understand that not everyone is privileged enough to explore and experiment. I do not want to go into the details of my situation when I did that because that is something pretty personal. But all I'm gonna say is that there are ways to do it even if you financially cannot afford it. And who said you have to quit your job anyway? Most of my experiments were when I was working in a job and explored so many things, which means that there was always room to explore as much as I wanted to. Overall, I just want to establish that the idea of careers have changed, and without exploring, experimenting, figuring things out for yourself, it's just gonna be a very hard battle. But if you explore and experiment, there's no battle to be fought. At some point, work just becomes something you really like, and you will do it irrespective of anything. And that is where a real career, according to me, begins. Everything before that is just warm up. In my case, I've done my warm up, and this is where everything begins for me. I hope this provides some value to someone out there. Even if this video helps one person with a different perspective, my job is done. That's all I want. Thank you.